I want to thank you for joining us today as we continue our study series. I'm Pastor Jerry Burney, and this series today is on science and origins, creation or evolution. Which one is it? You'll notice that the subtitle on the book in small print there reads Scientific Evidence Withheld from School Textbooks. In this series we're going to be touching just some of the highlights on this book, Science and Origins, and its relation to the question of age, which is the major factor in the creation-evolution debate. Now, these are just some of the highlights we're touching on. There's much more to explore in the book. And also, this series does not really get into the other part of the book, which is on ancient civilizations, another whole study on its own. Science is always changing, and we publish news and updates on our website, burneyfam.com, so that you can always stay up with the latest science so the book is not out of date. Our ministry delivers God's truth to jail and prison inmates all across the United States. Now, if you would like us to mail weekly studies to someone in jail or prison, please email us with their name and ID number and address so we can put them on our list. We're going to start today in the subject of evolution, macro or micro. Let me fast forward here to where we're at. If I can find it. Here we are. Fossils, evolution, macroevolution, or microevolution. Just saying the word evolution doesn't really describe what's going on. Science knows that we have microevolution and macroevolution. And one of the fossils we have, which is very common around the world, is a trilobite. We have a fossil here of a trilobite. You know, it's amazing. You can find these fossils even for sale at county fairs and stuff. There's usually somebody with a box full of them around there to sell them to you for a couple of dollars. They're kind of an interesting paperweight to keep around the house. Of all the areas of science relating to age, the fossil evidence is the most overwhelming. Scientists, conventional scientists, they need a long time frame in order to naturally, in theory anyway, give time for macroevolution to occur. Macroevolution requires large amounts of new information to be added to the DNA pool of a species so that it can change into a different species, a new life form. Now, scientists disagree as to whether complex DNA changes can occur without killing the species, as all studies show that most mutations, which are supposed to be the source of these changes in DNA, most mutations actually kill the next generation. All science agrees that microevolution within species does occur. This type of evolution occurs because the species selects information already available in the DNA pool. This microevolution does not result in a different species, only changes within the species. What's happening here is that in the Bible it tells us that God created different kinds. And in order to move from a fish to a mammal to a human, those are three different kinds. So the Bible indicates they were all created together. But science in its theory has come up with the idea that, well, we can see changes taking place within a species, like a bird's bill being narrower or stronger. So we can see this changing from generation to generation in birds and animals. Things change. And of course we have all kinds of varieties of dogs. Those things change. But dogs are still dogs. Birds are still birds, regardless of whether their beaks are bigger or smaller. So the question is, can DNA be somehow created in different species so they can become a different kind of animal altogether? Now, scientists who believe in macroevolution, changing from one kind to another kind, of one species changing into a different species, they propose theories of very old Earth age and very old age of fossils. Large periods of time are needed to support their supposed idea of species being able to change into different life forms. Additionally, in order for long-time theories of evolution to work, these fossils must appear in separate ages or strata of rock. As mentioned earlier, these strata are theorized by some scientists to represent long ages of sedimentary buildup. Thus, dinosaurs are theorized to be from one age and humans from another age. Of course, as we've already shown in previous sections, The geologic column of strata does not represent ages at all, but it represents catastrophic events within Earth's history. In fact, the actual fossil record in rock shows a young Earth, catastrophic flooding, volcanic activity, and even asteroid and meteor impacts. Animal and plant species suddenly appear fully developed in the fossil record, and even in the same layer of rock. And you recall that we talked about the Cambrian layer before. And there has never been any link found between species. None of the intermediate fossils that would be expected on the basis of evolution have ever been found between a single-cell organism and invertebrates, between invertebrates and vertebrates, between fish and amphibians, between amphibians and reptiles, between reptiles and birds or mammals, or between so-called lower mammals and primates. None. Now, Charles Darwin wrote in his book, Origin of Species, that there was no fossil evidence of evolution. He couldn't find any either. But he was sure that the missing links would soon be found. None ever have. Many creatures alive today, they appear in the fossil record from millions of years ago, before the dinosaurs even. And according to conventional science, this doesn't make sense to their hypotheses. And these animals found in the fossil record, they're in the fossil record looking as they do today. And some of these animals that we find throughout the fossil record, going back even predating the dinosaurs, are snakes, birds, turtles, certain mammals, lizards, crocodiles, insects, sharks, octopus, and many more. In other words, these things have been around for a long, long time. We're going to take a look at the thing that seems to captivate our imagination more than anything, which is dinosaurs. You'll notice here there's a photo of dinosaur hips. It's interesting that in order to make sure that we understood that dinosaurs supposedly evolved either from reptiles or into birds, you'll notice that the one fossil is labeled the bird-hipped dinosaur, and the other dinosaurs have what's called a lizard hip. And the lizard hip supposedly came from the dinosaurs. Supposedly came from the lizard, and the bird hips supposedly birds came out of the dinosaurs. It's quite interesting. If you study birds and lizards, they don't have these kind of hips. But we find ways of identifying things to try to link them within our imagination. So dinosaurs basically have two kinds of hips, but they're in no way related to lizards or birds. The dinosaurs have always been a source of old age theories because scientists, the conventional scientists, have assumed that creatures lived long ago and died before humans ever evolved. However, these are just theories, and as we've already discovered, verifiable dating methods used on rocks and fossils give us a date of around 7,000 years ago. Supposed agers in layers of rock suggesting billions of years are only theories, which evidence does not really support. But one may ask, if these giant creatures were around when the humans were, why don't we find fossil evidence of them together? And why are there no references to giant beasts in history? Well, the answer is actually that we do have fossil evidence, and there are written records referencing these beasts in history. Now, naturally, one would expect to find fossil evidence, as these would be preserved in rock. However, if only a small portion of these now extinct species survived the catastrophic events thousands of years ago, like flooding and asteroid collisions, and these were before written history, there would not be too many historical recent encounters to record, either in rock or on paper, but there are some. Dr. Dwayne Grish, professor of natural science, he reported of a Japanese trawler hauling up a decomposed plesiosaur. And geologist Donald Patton reported on fossil evidence of dinosaur tracks and human footprints together. And these are reported in Russia, in Australia, and the United States. One fossil actually had the human print inside the dinosaur print. Dr. Carl Bach, paleanthropologist, he reported on fossils in one particular area of Glen Rose, Texas, and there they found 203 dinosaur prints, 57 human prints, and bones from an Anthracosaurus, and a verified human finger bone, and an ancient hammer tool. Dinosaur footprints are found in several layers, suggesting not thousands of years between layers, but that this dinosaur was trying to escape a flood, climbing several layers to do so. Trilobites, which we showed a little bit earlier, trilobites, they're theorized to be 600 million years old, which is 10 times older than the dinosaurs. And yet they've been found squashed under human footprints, according to Kent Hovins. Many cultures throughout history have references to beasts, giants, or dragons. And these references appear in China, Japan, Australia, South America, India, Europe, England, and even here in the Americas with the American Indians. Acts and Facts magazine published actual pictures of various dinosaurs carved into rock and also depicted on drawings by ancient cultures in Cambodia, Peru, Mexico, and North America. They actually have pictures of dinosaurs that we would know as Triceratops and Brontosaurus. All these different dinosaurs actually have pictures not just carved into the caves, but also on ceramic bowls and instruments they would make for their community. Pictures of dinosaurs, all within the human time frame. These all predate the discovery of the dinosaurs in the 1800s. Obviously, humans and dinosaurs have coexisted. Additionally, Scott Woodward, a microbiologist in Brigham Young University, who's best known for identifying the genetic markers that led to the recent discovery of the defective gene causing cystic fibrosis, and also his work with the Egyptian government using DNA to untangle the family relationships of ancient dynasties, he has shown that evolutionists are wrong in their theories of birds and reptiles evolving from dinosaurs. Dr. Woodward's studies of dinosaur DNA shows no relationship of birds or reptiles. Now I want you to make note, he studied dinosaur DNA. We'll get to that in a second. His studies of dinosaur DNA show no relationships to birds or reptiles. The dinosaurs were in their own group and they died. No long ages for evolution to occur are necessary. It's very interesting that dinosaur bones, which supposedly died millions of years ago, turning into stone, are now able to give scientists soft tissue and blood so as to extract DNA. Mary Schweitzer of North Carolina State University, along with Bob Harmon, fossil preparer for the Museum of the Rockies, they announced that soft tissue was taken from dinosaurs and it was not fully fossilized. And that from that DNA they hope to even maybe recreate dinosaurs. You recall Jurassic Park. Well, it's actually taking place in the scientific community. Philip Curie, curator of dinosaurs at the Royal Tyrrell Museum of Paleontology, and Eva Kopelas, researcher, noted that most fossil dinosaur bones, get that, most fossil dinosaur bones, still contain the original bone, indicating recent burials. I have a couple of articles here. First, it was, this is from Science News in an article titled Ancient Oddballs in Indonesia. And it points out that they're trying to explain human evolution, requiring DNA samples to be studied. And it's difficult because these fossils are up to 95,000 years old. Both the human and the dinosaur remains will be noted do still have non-fossilized bone and tissue, and some DNA is still available. And therefore, it cannot possibly be as old as conventional science tries to date them. Evolution, of course, requiring long periods, millions of years. Scientists are debating this problem right now, as we speak. And so far, they have no resolution to the problem of soft tissue and DNA remaining after millions of years. And soft tissue includes even eye retina and skin, as well as hemoglobin. And these are being studied by scientists on mosasaur fossils from 80 million years ago. Another article in Science News, and discoveries in northeast China, they dated the fossils to be 125 million years ago by the rock. And they noted that these fossils contained well-preserved ancient dinosaurs along with their soft tissues. This was also reported in the April 2012 issue of Nature, and both of these science sources support the theory of evolution at the basis for understanding current life forms. And yet the evidence from all over the planet continues to point to a very young age for these population of dinosaurs, not millions of years as theorized. Scientists are troubled by the fact that many dinosaur discoveries from all over the world still have tissue and bone, and these have not turned to stone fossils yet. There's the issue of soft tissue and bones resurfaced again, and this time actual evidence of DNA survival is being reported in the science journals. Woodward, Weiland, and Burnell have verified this in an article in Science entitled "A DNA Sequence from Cretaceous Period Bone Fragments." The article in Axiom Facts goes on to report that the half-life of DNA, in other words, just like radiometric material decays, well, you can imagine that dead plants and animals go into the ground, they decay, and along with our decay, the DNA also decays. And it says here that the scientific studies have shown that the decay rate, the half-life of DNA, is 521 years. In other words, half of the DNA is destroyed in only 521 years. And in another 521 years, another quarter is destroyed. And that means that there's no possible way for DNA to survive beyond the ultimate limit of 10,000 years. The chemical sequences become too short for modern science technology to sequence any DNA past 10,000 years, according to science. Therefore, it's not possible that all these bones from dinosaurs, which might even only be 1 million years old, it's not possible for them to be that, much less 60 or 80 million years old, as they are reporting. Well, let's go over to the subject of amber. Amber is kind of an interesting subject because, as you know, trees put out sap, and the sap captures what's in the climate around them, including bugs and other things. As the sap flows out, it traps the air molecules, it traps the environment, it traps the bugs, and you can kind of tell, if you can date that amber, you can tell what was living during that time. Studies by George Pinoir, professor of entomology at the University of California, and Raul Cano, microbiologist of California Polytechnic State University, on DNA extracted from bees and amber. And that's just one of the examples. Of course, these amber pieces are available all over the world, and they have lots of insects trapped in them. But they all show the same thing. They extracted DNA from bees in this amber, and that tested to be 20 to 40 million years old by conventional scientists using conventional techniques of carbon-14 and radiometric dating. But this old DNA has shown to be the same as DNA found in modern bees and insects today. Again, there's no evidence of evolution or millions of years. The DNA they're finding in supposedly millions of years old amber is the same as it is today. Here's this Cambrian explosion, this period of time and the supposed evolution of the planet, where a certain layer of the ground shows all the life forms at one time. And it's called the explosion because that's what it was, like an explosion of life all occurring within this layer of ground. Professor John Koltz, he wrote, "In what is known as the Cambrian rock strata period, there is literally a sudden outburst of living things of great variety. Very few of the groups which we know today are not in existence at the time of this Cambrian rock. One of the problems of the Cambrian outburst is the sudden appearance of all these life forms all at once. All the animal phyla are represented already in the Cambrian strata. Two independent teams of paleontologists under D.J. Xu and also Chen Huang and Li reported in Nature Science magazine that all phyla have now been identified in the Cambrian layer, meaning that all life forms appeared suddenly at the same time, all phyla together at once. Evolutionists, recognizing that trilobites show their greatest variability in the beginning of the fossil record in the Cambrian layer, and since that time the species have shown degeneration, not evolution, but devolving, not evolving. And in more recent times there are less varieties within the species. In other words, there used to be a lot of varieties, but just as we know, different species have been destroyed during floods and volcanic activities, asteroids. Just the opposite. This is just the opposite of from what one would expect if evolutionary processes were creating the new DNA information and new life forms. So we have this dichotomy. We have some scientists, the conventional theory, that new DNA information is being created through mutation projects or some form of DNA sharing through cells, and this is creating new life forms. But the actual evidence shows that all life forms appeared suddenly in the fossil record, and that there's no links, no fossil records of any being found to indicate that you can go to a new life form. Well, one of the things that, of course, attracts our attention most is the study of human evolution. And this is a very intriguing study on human evolution. The more fossil evidence uncovered, the more changes evolution, the scientific explanation the conventional one, the more changes it must undergo to try and prop up a theory that's coming undone. Actual scientific evidence is destroying the idea of a human evolving from other kinds, like monkeys, apes, primates. Today, evidence points towards many human types or many species actually living and intermarrying together, kind of like our dog population. There's a lot of different varieties of dogs out there, but they can live together and have little puppies together. Well, if you've got a variety of human species, and they can get together and do the same thing. The evolution being uncovered is of the microtype, where people develop different types of bodies, short, tall, heavy, light, and other features within any biological groups, different types of noses, different types of eye ridges, colorations, hair color. There's no proof of macroevolution being discovered in any of these records. In other words, coming from a primate to an ape, primate to a human. Still, conventional science won't give up trying to spread the various species types of humans over millions of years in an effort to support a theory of evolution. In other words, it becomes a problem of age again. Did all these different species live at the same time, just like we have a variety of dogs living on the planet today, or did they evolve one at a time over millions of years? The evidence is showing that all these fossils are closely related and even intermarried, and it opens up another can of worms for evolutionists. In their scientific articles, they expose the problem. They're using DNA from bones to determine the relationship of all these varieties of human types. They're using the DNA from bones, that the bones are supposedly millions of years old, or hundreds of thousands of years old at the very least. And the problem for evolutionary science is trying to explain how bones supposedly 20,000 to 2 million years old are not actually fossilized. And they can still use the bones to test for DNA. It hasn't decomposed. Science Illustrated has reported extremely well-preserved entire skeletons that have not disintegrated in over 2 million years. They're laying on the surface of the ground, ready to be discovered. From Science News, an article called Tangled Roots, it has clear signs of interbreeding of human types. Discoveries all due to retrieving DNA from fossils. So number one, they're able to retrieve the DNA from all these various type fossils, and then they're able to discover that, gee, they're pretty well related. There's been interbreeding going on, all within the species, all within the kind. Hundreds and thousands of years old, some of these fossils are rated to be. And the scientists say a dominant theory of human development has to be revised. These scientists say there is a need now to test DNA from bone samples and museum fossils from all over the world of various human types, supposedly 20,000 and older, to try and figure out how well all of us are interrelated. And their answer is yes, Neanderthals are our cousins. Let's see here. 71 seconds. William Hoesch, a geologist, in an article titled "How Coherent is the Human Evolutionary Story?" He notes that leading anthropologists find the difference between various human fossil categories to be so small that they have wondered, in print even, in the scientific journals, if Homo sapiens and Homo erectus are one and the same. They also noted that the old traits of these fossils are actually found in some current families of humans, such as Eskimos. They also noted that supposedly older human forms are also found in later rock strata, and supposedly later forms of humans are also found in older rock strata. And furthermore, these anomalies are not rare, they're numerous. Scientists are theorizing that Neanderthals may have interbred, and this is discussed by Matthias Krings in cell number 9, and it appears that this is a case of microevolution, where there are different species within the humankind, but not macroevolution, where humans evolved from primates. And that's the next subject we're going to go to, is talking about how closely related we are to primates. Are humans and chimps really different kinds? Or are we somehow so closely related that at any time a primate couple could give birth to a human baby, and if the same DNA pool's there, maybe a human couple could give birth to a primate baby? I haven't read about any of that developing within the recent past. There is kind of a funny little story I was told the other day. A little girl asked her mother, how did the human race appear? And the mother answered, well, God made Adam and Eve, and they had children, and so all mankind was made, created by God. And then 2 days later, the little girl asked her father the same question. The father answered, well, many, many years ago, there were monkeys from which humans evolved. Well, there's the two stories of science right there. Well, the confused girl, she returned home to her mother and said, Mom, how is it possible that you told me the human race was created by God, and Dad said that it developed by monkeys? And the mother answered, well, dear, it's very simple. I told you about my side of the family, and your father told you about his side of the family. Well, I hope you've enjoyed today. I want to thank you for joining us in this series. May God bless you each and every day until the next time. And until next time, please pray for our jail and prison ministry.